Live from inside, it's the end of the world. Featuring respiratory disease, systemic distrust of the U.S. healthcare system, toilet paper shortages, Keaton Thompson, and COVID-19. Musical guest. Fucking nobody. The industry has been canceled.
Music. Will it happen again? We don't know.
We're gonna play. Keaton Thompson is still there in an empty Studio 8H, giving you sterling character work.
No, don't worry. Pete Buttigieg is there with him.
Oh God. Okay, let's get this podcast. Let's get this podcast rolling.
Love this one.
Let's get this podcast rolling. Hello, I am your host, Matty, aka @MotorVanPrince on Twitter. On this episode of the podcast, we have Jackson.
You gotta read them in the order that they're on.
I'm not gonna read them in the order. I'm just going off what this guy's profile pictures are saying. You're again, Jackson. I'm staring at your face front and center. You're in the center of my laptop screen right now.
You know what, Matty? I'm not gonna yes and you right now. Fuck off. We're going with the order.
All right, fine. We'll go with the order. All right, Rose.
Possibly infected, but still here.
We got Lily.
Oh, yep. I've been inside for a while. I want to get an indoors check once we're done writing down the names. Hi, everybody. This is weird. Love this quarantine dish.
Yes, Dill. We had Dill.
I don't got any viruses, but I do have anxiety, so I've been staying inside as much as possible.
Oh, and now we have Jackson. Now we have
Hello.
Jackson.
Hi, it's me at DJ Horse Jeans at horse_jeans on Twitter.com. I am inside. I have a brew and I'm ready to talk about music for the last time, maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. And I am also inside. However, I've been working the last 4 days in retail, so we'll see what happens with me.
Matty is currently the first place odds favorite for Indieheads podcast member.
Well, actually,
due to having worked a Bernie rally like 4 days ago or whatever.
Yes, this is true. Actually, I think it might be Jake because Jake had like really bad like flu-like symptoms.
Well, does it really?
They're not sure, but like it's pretty. It's like I'm like Jake, you had coronavirus. you had coronavirus.
Yeah, you Americans are all going without the training wheels on this one compared to me, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, no, like I said, of course, I worked a Bernie rally. I had, like, dozens of people touching my phone, so that's just, and of course,
not what you want, ideally.
And I've been working at Office Depot. However, I've mainly been interacting with old people, so soon they'll be calling me Mr. Boomer Remover.
Jesus.
Soon. Okay, it's okay.
Matty, Matty, you did that joke in the pre-pod discussion. It doesn't hit nearly as well as you think it did.
No,
it was new to me.
I know, but like, look, these people are buying like, look.
That was what was really the key to that joke succeeding was we needed to tell it on air for people that could actually get mad at us. Was really what that joke was missing and why it didn't work 10 minutes ago.
Yes. But like for real, just for real coronavirus stuff, this shit sucks. Seeing all these tours cancel and these musicians like basically coming in like financial limbo, it fucking sucks. If you can support all these artists as best you can, buy their merch. They have a Patreon, subscribe on Patreon. If they got Venmos, do that. This is in a very important time to support the arts because the U.S. infrastructure is simply not ready for this in so many different ways, whether it be healthcare, whether it be sick leave, all this shit. The U.S. is not prepared. I know I made the boomer remover joke, but like, look, the people that are mainly going to be affected by this are poor people and people who are generally sort of marginalized by society. This is again, and to see shit like people like doing these fucking bar crawls in Chicago. What the fuck are you doing? You fucking stupid assholes. I'm doing my job at retail because I literally have to do that job so I have money in my bank account. Otherwise, so I don't go destitute. You know, Like
that date, I don't know if any of you are brain poisoned enough that you just watched that Dave Portnoy video that just went up on Twitter, but like,
Sure,
God,
I'm not. But
God
go
damn
on.
it. I was wanting our podcast to be the only place where Barstool Sports was not discussed in any shape or form.
No, that is just it really is just the pinnacle of why like Americans need to be fired into the sun and why we just like can't be trusted with anything.
Look, I'll say the
Anyway,
rest of the continent is considering that.
wouldn't blame you.
We got to
Not
look
for a
out for
second.
our own.
We're going
Actually,
to try the entire country at the hog, okay?
Kim Jong Un, if you are listening to this podcast, if you're hearing this transmission, my country needs saving. We need help. Please put sanctions on our country. That's how it's gonna help. Like that's how we're gonna get helped. Okay. Do it.
It really speaks so much to like the millennial affliction that the number one way we're all coping with this is by like making content.
I mean, what else are
All
we
of my
gonna do?
really the way.
meetings off and recording podcasts.
All right, wait.
It's
So,
like-
okay, wait. I want to test a theory real quick. Does anyone have TikTok, or is
No.
everyone stayed
No.
away? Okay, good. Everyone has stayed away. Okay, good. This is the one thing that the Indieheads podcast can stand behind is that like
we
none
need
of
to
us have
create a
TikTok.
quarantine for TikTok. We can't let it in.
we need to quarantine the TikTok influencer's house. Okay, we need to quarantine that house.
We're all, I think all of us basically right on the millennial Gen Z line, and I really think it the two indicators is either do you remember 9/11 or do you have a TikTok? That's really the two ways to figure it out.
Yes. I don't remember 9/11, but I do not
See,
have TikTok.
you're right on the boundary. You could go either way.
Exactly, but
See, I remember 9/11, so I feel like I'm safe. I got a leg up on everyone else.
you're a millennial. Like
millennial.
you and AJ are millennials. You two are millennials. I think.
I would say late stage millennial though. I got
Okay,
some
yeah.
cynicism in me.
True. Anyways, so this is the first podcast we're doing where we're discussing albums that came out this year. So
do we do a podcast? Is that what this is about?
the only podcast we've done this year were the 2019 Album of the Year podcast, and we've been doing the Discog breakdown for Phil Elverum, and then Jeremiah did the retrospect on Currents. That's been it so far this year.
Yeah, as far as I was aware, we changed formats to being a group chat about like a year ago.
Pretty much, yeah. We're a group chat that occasionally does a podcast. Occasionally, but here we are. We have many albums to discuss.
We're
Let's
probably going to be brief on a lot of them because
Yeah.
there are a lot of these.
Too many.
But we're going to start really where, I mean, it's been in almost a quarter of a year already. There's all kinds of stuff that's come out. We need to discuss clearly what's the most important thing that's on the tips of the tongues of every music fan around the country. It's Mark Kozelek and his new album he's released with Jim White and Ben Boy. Is that their names? Jim White and Ben Boy, I believe, are their names. And It's the new Mark Kozelek album. And I actually do not have that much to say about this album because it's just pretty. I was saying this. I was talking a lot about this before we got on air. I managed to get some of my cause out before I got on microphone, so that I'm not gonna bore all you with this all day. But basically,
We really should have been recording during that point though, because we went on like it was like 20 minutes. It was like a good 20 minutes of discussion.
There was some good riffing going on. Anyways,
Yeah, I jumped into the chat fully thinking the podcast was happening already. You guys have gotten into it.
I was already getting into it. But no, yeah, this new Cause album is very good. Some of the songs are a little too long, and but I don't need to say that it's Mark Kozelek album, you know that. But I think that this one is one of the minor releases where if you haven't really been interested in the last string of releases, this would not be the entry point I would recommend to you. But if you have enjoyed his last couple of works and are looking for something a little more kind of somber and reflective maybe than his last couple ones, it's kind of like This Is My Dinner in terms of the amount of piano that's on it and the general vibe of it. I like it more than the last Ben Boy and Jim White album, but I like it less than I Also Want to Die in New Orleans and the Mark Kozelek self-titled and a couple of the other recent ones. So in general, I'm I'm pretty mixed on it, but also like I'm more fascinated by it than basically every other thing on this list because I have Cause Brain and I've thought about this album more than just about anything else because every Mark Kozelek album, even the ones I don't love, give me like a ton to chew on, including an entire song about charred enchiladas and playing the bassoon that I think is a metaphor, maybe, possibly, but also
look, everyone's talking Jokerfied this, Jokerfied that. What about causified? All right, no one's talking about being causified.
I've been fully causified, and it's doing harm to my brain functions. But I like this album a lot. I think the two best songs on it are Where's Gilroy and My Brother Loves Seagulls. I think in general the back three songs is like, even though those are all the longest songs, I think that has a lot of the best material on the album. I think it kind of gets bogged down in the middle because the artist and Charred Enchilada are probably like the weakest songs of the bunch, and so it kind of dips. But it's overall pretty good. Would recommend for anyone who is a fellow afflict of cause brain and you maybe didn't know this came out, because it happens to me all the time. Like there have been a couple of times over the past few years when I'm just like going to fire up Universal Themes and I'm like, he has a new album out. It'll sneak up on you. He puts out a lot of them, so check this one out.
If I may, Mark Kozelek puts out albums at about the same rate as the Indieheads podcast puts out episodes.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who that's more of an indictment of.
It'll go 9 months and then he'll put out like 4 hours of material. So it's kind of a similar ratio all around.
The thing with these Cause albums is that Jackson could hop on a podcast. He'll be like, "Oh, there's a new Kozelek album out," and I won't look it up. And he'll just like start saying like, "Oh yeah, he had a song about this, and there's a song called High School Swimming." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I believe you. That's a song on the new Mark Kozelek album."
I really should lie more is what I should do.
Bro. Look, as our president has proven with his response to the coronavirus and the fact that he almost definitely has it, lying is great. Just
lying is great. It's a good strategy. It'll get you far in life. Highly recommend.
Pretty fun.
Anyways, this.
Let's get to another storytelling songwriter, Andy Shauf, who has put out my favorite album of the year so far, The Neon Skyline. I did a little review for this one for Pop Ties like a month or two ago, but folks, it's really fucking good. It's artists like Andy Shauf, they're not like exactly like once in a million, but for an artist who's writing very conceptual works that are very story driven, and for them to be so good and so almost selfless in a way is really inspiring. It's because I think I discussed this on the Currents retrospect a little bit, but that album is fucking doo-doo, and it's because it's got a wholly unreliable narrator, and not in a fun way, because the unreliable narrator can be a fun writing device, but it's clear that like, oh no, he didn't write this with an unreliable narrator in mind. He wrote this because I got broken up with, I'm really sad, and you owe me. Like, come on. But Andy Shauf, it's like that. There's a deep empathy with his songwriting, and it's really great. What were we gonna say, Dylan?
Hey, Matty, I'm about to blow your mind right now.
Uh-huh.
All narrators in literature are technically unreliable.
Damn.
That's the galaxy brain take there, folks. All right. Anyway, so I have a Goodreads blog coming up in the next
but for real, this album is fucking great. Living Room Song of the Year. It is. This is a really incredible work. Hopefully it doesn't get too forgotten about, because it did come out in the beginning of the year, but it's really fucking great. So far, the best album of the 2020s.
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive on it yet, but I've been playing around. It's made itself into the work rotation, and it's good, solid, good tunes. It's local. We stand a Torontoman.
Also Saskatchewan, because he's got a little funny accent. It's great. It's cute.
Also, yeah, that's true. He did come to the prairies. Yeah.
Shout out to Anti Records. Woo.
Shout out to Anti Records. Again, the home of our dearly beloved Japan droids.
That is true, among other brands.
I think it will remain to be seen if this record can stay in my kind of like upper tier echelon of albums. Mainly because I don't know, I have this like sort of affinity towards anything that can fill the wasteland of like January, February. But I mean, for the time period, it's outstanding.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Andy Shauf, baby. Let's see. Who did you write Caribou, Jackson?
I can do Caribou.
Or
I wrote
also
Caribou.
talk
Okay,
Caribou.
go for it, Dill.
I think all. Go ahead, Dill.
All right. The new Caribou album is the first one in what is it, like 5.5 years technically?
Let me look. It was
Maybe 6.
2015.
No,
2014.
It was like
So
end of
almost
2014.
6.
2014, and then the deluxe came out in 2015. I think is what it was.
Okay. Well, anyway, the first Caribou record in, let's just say, 5 years.
Ish.
Ish. And you know what? It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's some fun tunes for the end of the world, basically. If you know Caribou and you know his sound, then you know exactly what you're getting into. You're gonna get some nice, comfy beats. You're gonna get some nice soul samples in there. It's not quite as like, I guess, like headspace worthy as like Our Love was, because that one had a lot more, maximalism to it. I think. Suddenly it's more like it's lighter. It's more like summery-ish. I don't know, but I didn't like it as much as Our Love or a couple of other Caribou stuff, but it's still nice. Still nice and pretty, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of just hard to complain about more Caribou. I was like, this is just more, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I really, really like this album. I don't know how I think this is a very different kind of album than Our Love. So I'm not sure exactly how I'd stack them up next to each other. I really, really love this album. I said on Twitter, this is probably my favorite of the year so far, and that is probably true. I might have changed actually in the last couple of days, but I really, really love this album and think that it's very impressive how creative and kind of try anything it is while also not being a mess. Because almost all the time when someone is trying, clearly like, oh, I'm going to try lots of different stuff and show off my versatility on this album, usually that kind of an approach tends to get people in trouble, and that's how you have albums that are just like a sloppy mess. And this album, it doesn't feel like he just tried a bunch of stuff and then put it all together haphazardly. It feels like he tried like hundreds of little ideas and like filtered them down and edited them into a track list that actually flows and makes sense, thank fucking God, which people don't do very well on the streaming era, and it annoys me very much. But I think this album flows really well, and I think basically all the main tracks of it I really like. I loved the single Home, which sounds like a DJ Koze Avalanche's kind of hip-hoppy thing.
It really does. Yeah,
it does.
So good. And then it's just like he tries on lots of different hats throughout this whole thing, like New Jade with those like skipping fast like vocal samples and stuff, and like that loungy kind of bass and piano on Lime and stuff like that. There's just so many like interesting ideas on every single track, and every single track is offering something new to the equation while having his voice be the thing that kind of anchors you throughout the track list and keeps it feeling like a cohesive sort of piece. And I think that his singing really feels like more of like a him solo record than it feels like a kind of on Our Love. It feels like he is one element of this kind of larger thing that he's building out, and this feels more just like focused around him as like a pop kind of singer, and I really love it. I think it's very great, and
I think the sampling here is definitely way stronger than Our Love. Especially Never Come Back, when it's got that very punchy vocal sample to it, which it almost sounds like it's like a Churches sample or some kind of like electro pop, like something
It's
to
very
it.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it personally. Trying to think, did I have any other thoughts? I really like Magpie too. That's a nice one. I think it's also impressive how like all the different like the slower songs all work, and the more up tempo songs and the different all the different things you try kind of work pretty seamlessly, and it's very impressive how it manages to kind of coalesce into a project like this. It's very good. We'll move on, I think. Oh, it's time. I have.
I have entered the chat.
Lily is in the chat. Hello. Me too. I'm fully on the train yet. Choo choo.
Oh God. Okay, so Holy Fawn surprise released an EP in, what was it, January, I think, which I was not expecting. I was kind of thinking like, because after Death Spells, which, as we all know, is the album of the decade, like that's so monumental, and they spent so much time working on it that's like, right, we're probably not getting new Holy Fawn for like another 4 years, and then just drop this little thing in here to keep us satisfied, and it's good. It's good, because the thing is with Death Spells, it's such like a singular, perfect execution of like one very specific sound, and it's like, okay, so they mastered that. Like, how are they still going to be interesting as a band? Like, as much as I love that album, I did have a fear that, they were kind of just going to be making, Death Spells 2, Death Spells 3, 2 Death, 2 Spells, etc. For like the rest of their career. And then this is just like, it's somehow they walk that line of it being like identifiably Holy Fawn without it sounding entirely like anything that is on Death Spells. And I'm so happy about it. I remember I put it on and like the first 30 seconds of Candy is so ominous that you're like, oh, are they about to do it? Are they about to do it? And then that wall of guitars hits, and it was done, and the body disintegrated into a million little particles that all reform themselves in the shape of Saoirse Ronan saying guitars. The guitars. Yeah.
The Holy Fawn asked the important question, what if there were guitars? And the answer is it's good. It's very good. Because
correct.
They brought the pedals, and they've brought everything that we loved about their 2018 album. Checked it out yet, people listening to this, but you probably haven't. Death Spells, Holy Fawn, in stores now if you like heavy music that is also soft and pretty.
I will reiterate my original sales pitch from when it dropped, which is if you like any 2 out of the 3 genres between post-rock, emo, and shoegaze, you will like Death Spells.
This is true.
Yeah, even as somebody who wasn't like a huge Spells head before this, because like I thought Death Spells great, but like so fucking long. Like that was my main issue with it. It's just like it is an immense slab of music, and then this was just like a very nice little bite-sized thing that I was just like, oh, this is way more digestible than the last stuff.
It's true. I'm very glad they have this out as a sampler, because like the problem is their EPs beforehand weren't really that representative of the Death Spells sound. Like that would be a bad entry point for them. That's kind of like the proto deep cut. And now with this, it's like if you want to understand like the full spectrum of what Holy Fawn does in 20 minutes, here's this EP. It's great because what they do is great.
Yeah, Death Spells is like a full like 1 hour wallow sesh, while this is like manages to create that same kind of sense of atmosphere in a perfect 15-minute. For my 15-minute breaks at work, this has become the I'm going out for a cigarette EP. It's just perfect atmosphere set immediately within that first 30 seconds of Candy and that first drop hit, and you're just like, all right, I'm in the zone. And I also really think that the little ambient piece in between the 2 tracks, Tethered, is very good. And I think it all fits together very nicely into an EP that is not just a couple of tracks. And I like it a lot. Rules.
Agreed. Holy Fawn, good. If you're not listening to them, change that.
Oh, this next one is probably me, huh?
Yeah.
I'll join you. Hey, I'm the one who gave you the record. I'll join you on this.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just joking here. Like, Oh yeah, so next up on the docket, a slightly more recent one. Caroline Rose's second, or no, actually, this is her fourth album, Superstar. I can't count out the country records. But if you haven't heard her already, go listen to Loner, 2018 album of the year. This new one, however, is a bit of a sequel slash step up from the previous one, and it's a pretty fun little indie pop record that I think most people will be able to get into. It's definitely gotten a few people who previously were not on the train into it. I'll say that much.
Yes, the parts of Loner that I really liked, and the stuff on Loner that didn't work, I'm Rose. I'm sorry. Hopefully you are in the right space to receive information that may hurt you. But Bikini is a terrible song.
It's okay. It's not the best one.
It's Target commercial music. I know it's supposed to be like a parody of that kind of music, but it goes so far that's like, okay, this just sounds like it. So what's the point? But this album is fucking great. I love this album a lot. The Pitchfork review is boggling to me.
It's odd, to say the least.
Because I assumed this would be like a critical knockout. I assumed like, oh shit, like upon hearing this record, because I've had it for a couple months now, like, oh shit, this album's gonna be really critically acclaimed. So people are gonna fucking love it. Like, this is a huge album of the year contender. And then it comes out, it's like, the release has been, it's been fairly good, but at the same time, it's like, it's not getting as much love as I expected. It's a little sad because I think it's a great record. And I think like, despite its conceptual nature, I still think there's a lot to dig into. There's still a lot to relate to,
Oh yeah, definitely. Like a lot of the songs here are still like, even though it's trying to tell a story, it still is very much her just like writing about shit because that's like her standard mode of operation. Like literally one of these songs is just about having a fucking anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm. Another song where it's just, it's all about just, being a freak, she just needs a freak like her. And, who can't, hey, who can relate? Who can relate?
Who can relate?
Who can relate?
She really made a song that's just like, need big titty culture.
Oh my god.
I mean, please, can we not forget? I really don't want anyone to forget this, even though this is not a 2020 record. Please do not forget that in 2019, Marika Hackman made a song about Jack in it called Hand Solo. Please never forget that, and always remember.
I mean, I would remember it if that album was any good. I'm sorry. Look. I was the one who introduced all of y'all to Marika Hackman. So, there's anyone who has any right to be like, I didn't really care for that new record. It is me.
It's not my. I don't love it nearly as much as I'm Not Your Man. You are correct, but also it's good. It's pretty good. There are songs on it I really love.
I like that it is shorter and more accessible than I'm Not Your Man, even though it doesn't hit the same highs. And like, I do forget that album exists. And then like every month or two, I go back to it and I'm like, right, this is horny. This is so horny.
Oh, yeah,
very horny. And that's what makes what makes Superstar so good is that it's unabashedly horny and it's not embarrassing about being horny, or if at least it is, it's tongue in cheek. So it's like okay, it's like okay. But for real, this is a great record. I think like sonically, it's a very big step up because like I said, Loner, its highs are very, very high, but some of its lows are very it's a record that doesn't fully know, like I think it's a good record, but it's also a record that like it doesn't fully, it doesn't
know what
it doesn't 100% know what it wants to be. But this is like, okay, unabashedly confident, knows exactly what it's doing. Some of these songs are fucking fantastic. Like, Do You Think We'll Last Forever? Holy shit.
Legitimately, like, I have some gripes that we'll talk about in a bit, but that song is actually the best thing she's ever done. And it's, like, genuinely shocking to hear how big the step up in the production she is on this, just compared to, like, anything on the last album, which was, like, felt a lot more basic, even though she's doing pretty much the same setup as before.
Mm. It feels like in a way it's a culmination of a lot of the trends in indie music in the last couple of years, but it's a refinement on all this stuff because it's gonna sound. I think whenever I heard this album for the first time, I was getting back into Currents for the retrospect podcast, and I was seeing a lot of similarities sonically between the two. But of course, the Caroline Rose album is a refinement of that sound, of that sort of crunchy digital sort of synth
reverby.
music. Yeah.
It also
it's a
has the
refinement.
perks of being written by not Kevin Parker.
This is true. This is very
Listen,
true. Caroline Rose is
anything
actually
generally
a
not Kevin
fantastic
Parker
writer.
will be better than Kevin Parker.
Yeah, Caroline
It's
Rose can
simple
actually write songs that are good. And Kevin Parker, as we'll discuss a bit later on this podcast, still cannot write songs that are good. He's still struggling there. You know, he's still having a hard time. It's okay, Kevin. We'll give you a pat in the back. You know,
We gotta move on.
We'll give you an Australian government grant.
We'll get to Kevin. We'll move on.
But this album is fucking fantastic. Seriously, I hope the Pitchfork review didn't like stir people away because this is a fucking fantastic record, one of the best of the year so far. I love it to death.
Yeah, if you're like not a pre-existing Caroline Rose head, this will almost certainly get you into it. But if you're like me and you're one of those grumpy people who's just like, I like the old stuff better, you will fully understand why.
But yeah, let's talk about. So actually, I'm doing this podcast. I was supposed to see this artist tonight, but because of the coronavirus, he had to cancel the rest of his tour dates, including in St. Louis. Mr. Dan Behar Destroyer, with his new record "Have We Met." I know Dill, you're the one who's the biggest fan of this record, I think, amongst the group. So I'll let you go
probably.
first.
Yeah, I really love this one as well, though. So
Yeah, I really like it. I just haven't been that vocal about it because, I mean, similar with Caribou, it's kind of just more Destroyer doing what he's best at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this record, to describe it best, Dan Behar is extremely on his bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like a B tier Destroyer fan where it's like I like him, but I'm not like Jeremiah level.
To be clear, nobody is
Nobody's
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, you're
Dan Behar
summoning
doesn't like
something
himself
higher.
that much.
Yeah. I mean, I really love Have We Met. I think it's probably the best one that he's done in a while, and that's coming from someone who didn't like Ken is like mid-tier, like all right level to me. And I like Poison Season, but even Poison Season lags a bit. So I think like from like beginning to end, Have We Met is probably the best one that he's done since Kaput. I don't know. I think a lot of the arrangements that he has going on here are really great. Crimson Tide, just like as an opener, is fantastic. Cube Synthesizer is a nice, mellow, very nice build up of orchestral arrangement, whatnot. I'm gonna stop talking so that someone else can jump in.
Yeah, okay, I'll hit it for a little bit here. So I think the main struggle for me with Dan Behar's work is like, other than like his peak albums, like the ones that really hit for me, so like Street Hawk, Kaput, and Rubies, like other than those, he seems to have more strength as like a songs guy than an albums guy. Like, it's just those things where like little touches where I can really understand, what he's going for. And this one, I think, comes very close to being a full album of like really good stuff, but the sequencing kills me. Like, Television Music Supervisor is an amazing song, but also it has no right to be.
Yeah. No, you're
like
right.
It having
You're
no
right.
right to be there, it kind of almost makes it better, especially on the first listen. You're like, oh, we're doing this now?
Yeah,
Doing
like
this
we're
now?
immediately diving into like peak Dan Behar bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is, the album's like, are you in or you're out moment. And I will also say about that song, I think paging Shithead #1 and Shithead #2 is going to become one of the lines of this year, is this current situation.
It's so fucking good.
And
That's why it's one of my favorite songs. It's completely fucking ridiculous.
That's so absurd.
Yeah, and let me clarify that when I said like it's probably his best since Kaput, that also comes with the caveat of like it's nowhere near as good as Kaput, obviously. I just think I like kind of dark, and it just, like that entire like first half run of the album I think is fantastic. It does lull in the second half, however, a little, just a little bit. University Hill is kind of a what the fuck is he doing on University Hill? I cannot understand it.
He's just doing a bit.
There's some like typical like Behar bullshit that's going on here, even more so than there was on like Ken and Poison season, I think, where he just kind of goes just a little bit off the rocker, and that's where television supervisor is the main point of that bullshit. Where
the music goes.
Yeah.
Boopity clackity boop. I will say. I'm Behar. I'm a bit more. I'm more conflicted on his works than most. I would say, because I love Kaput, I love parts of Poison Season, but this record didn't do it for me. I was just like, I'm not to say that he doesn't care anymore, but it's clear that like, okay, this dude is like fully like, all right, as much as Dan Behar can coast, he is coasting somewhat, and he's allowed to. He's allowed to. That motherfucker made Kaput. If anyone deserves to coast, it's him. But for me, it was just like, what the fuck is this dude doing? like it's like it seems like the budget for his albums keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's like he spent it's basically like, okay, Dan Behar, like Merge Records is like, okay, Dan Behar, this is your production budget for the next decade. He spent most of the money on Kaput. It's like he spent like, maybe like a fourth of it on Kaput. He then spent like half of it on Poison Season. And then for Kenny, it's like, okay, I'm gonna use like a third. And this one's like, oh shit, I have like no money. What is the cheapest drum machine and synthesizer I can buy on eBay right now? That's
Quick,
how
get my drummer to produce.
Exactly.
The John Mulaney birthday sign of strategies long term.
It's clear this motherfucker ran out of money, like this decade. But hey, I support it. I mean, even with the album cover, it's like, oh, this motherfucker ran out of money.
Yeah,
like,
what is this cover design? I need to ask.
Look, we were talking about being horny earlier, and let me tell you, if you're a chest person, hoo boy.
He's using it to distract from the font.
Wait, how old is he anyway? Hold on, I need to check.
He's like in his late 40s now.
He's 48.
He's 48. Okay.
Because he says in the song he was 20 years old in 1992, and it's been 18 years, or wait, hang on, 28 years since then. So yeah, I'm gonna say 48.
Okay.
Yeah. 40.
So he's in like full on dad bod mode, right? Now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's a dad though. Is that?
He is. He very famously has a daughter.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because here's
prominent single dad.
Well, here's the thing. He has extreme uncle vibes, though. He's got extreme cool uncle vibes. So I wasn't sure if he was a dad or not. But like, yeah.
Matty, since you didn't know this, I have to relay this anecdote that like a lot of the vocal.
I'm not from fucking Canada, Lily. I don't live in Canada. I live in the Midwest.
You have internet access.
Okay, all right.
I only found this out a couple years ago, but he like in the Kaput press was telling anecdotes about like he did some of the vocal takes on that album while like sitting in the couch watching his daughter like mess around.
Oh my god.
You peak lazy dad, like, yeah, I'll keep an eye on my kid and like bust out, Bay of Pigs.
Might fuck around and make a synth pop album, see what happens.
God. Okay, let's move on to the next record. One that we don't have a whole lot to say because it just came out, but one that the chat, we're all getting hyped about it.
I have enough to say, honestly. I've listened to it like 3 times.
Okay, true. Yeah. Well, some of us are not allowed to go home from work, Jackson. Some of us are still having.
I know at least 2 of us just listened to it right before the pod came on.
That is correct, and I still have a lot to say.
Okay, this new Porches radio album, it is very, very good. It honks. All right.
Ew.
Yeah, I was skeptical only because their band name is not great. Not a fan.
No.
But however, they are super British, so it does kind of fit. But also, this album fucking rules. and I'm immediately all in. We were just talking about, I've been trying to pinpoint, there's a lot of very interesting different influences and inspirations kind of coming together on this album. And I feel like while this album is not like perfect and there are a couple of weak songs here, I think the thing that you get as a takeaway from this album immediately is that this Dana, the lead singer of this band, can fucking sing and can write lyrics and has a very particular style of lyric writing and performance where the all basically every song here is centered around these repetitions of phrase that are less like a pop chorus and more like an incantation that she chants in order to channel energy. Like there are so many lines, like there are multiple songs that will just end on a single line being repeated like 10, 15 times, where each time she's saying it, the way she's performing it is growing more intense. And the range of emotions that she covers on this album is like, it goes from, on some songs she's like completely like ironic and like smug and detached and like I think Sweet is a really great example of this because it has both of these ends of it where like she's kind of biting and being like cheeky and funny, but then will like go from that all the way into full like screaming like emotion that's like completely genuine. And like I think it's just like such a dynamic album where like there's so many great moments where like it'll build to these incredible climaxes that like reach 11 and then keep going to 12 and 13 and 14, and you're like, where are these extra levels coming from? Like how are they building out the levels this high? It's a like a towering album for a band this small and this new and still clearly figuring stuff out. And a couple of really, really, really big moments on this album, like Long and Sweet and Lilac, are just like some of the best songs I've heard in a long ass time. This shit rules.
Yeah, friggin' Lilac into Circling. I was like, is this
what
is
the
this
hell?
allowed? This legal?
The
Can
whole,
they
the
do
whole
this?
back. It's very. I really, really love the structuring of the album because the first half are these songs that are like perfectly balancing like euphoria and breakdown at the same time, where she's like screaming and like relieved but also freaking out. And you have songs like Give Take where it's like this double narrative where she's doing both sides of her relationship, but then as the album progresses, it's like, all right, here's this mix of emotion, but now here toward the back end, we make a left turn into Sadsville, and we make a hard left turn in there for the rest of the way, and then the last song ends with "I am a sinking ship with nothing left inside" over and over and over again, and that's the note it ends on, which works very well. Yeah, this shit hurts, but also is really, really great and listenable in a way that most like cathartic tear your heart out albums kind of aren't. Like it has an energy and a momentum to it. It's like if Julian Baker wrote bangers.
That is pretty accurate.
Yeah. So I mean, the way that I pitched it to everybody was, so Interpol. All right. Now, what if it was Interpol, but it was for the ladies? And...
This album does say, "What if Marauder was for the gals?"
Exactly.
Fully the aesthetic.
That's a good comparison.
What if? Okay. I this joke isn't gonna work, but I need to have it preserved in some way. What if instead of Interpol, it was intersectional pole, and it was for the ladies? All right.
Pretty good.
All right, we're gonna continue.
Although, Matty, we could just make the name of this podcast. This joke probably isn't going to work, but I want to preserve it for some kind of
Future generations must hear it.
That might as well be the name of our podcast.
Hey, all right, okay, we got a deal. But Lily, did you have thoughts on this record? I know you said you had a lot.
Oh, I mean, okay. After Jax's ramble, not a lot really. That pretty much covered it. This album is good though. It's exciting to have something like this come out of, at least for my radar. Like, truly nowhere. And I really am excited to dig into this album more and see where this band goes in the future. It's just great songs on this thing. Long, too.
Yeah, Long is
Ugh.
ridiculous. And the great one of the better examples of how she's like able to linearly like build the song on top of itself and on top of itself kind of reminds me of like some of the way like Will Toledo writes songs a little bit, and like I really 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 love it so much. And the instrumentation, especially on some of those tracks, like Long is the one that feels the most Interpol-y with that guitar line that Lily pointed out over text to me, and definitely is like it activated my similar Daniel Kessler sensors, like, ooh, a single guitar line just playing one note like that, that's what I like, baby, give me that. Exactly.
8 notes with a reverb pedal. Ooh, we're in.
Yes, we're absolutely in. But also, they go a lot harder than Interpol really ever go. Interpol is they're more of a vibe band than this band is. This band is really, it kind of, a lot of these songs, it really, really reminds me of not necessarily Big Thief in general, but specifically the song Not. Like, there's really, like, when I heard the song Not, I was like, wow, I've never really heard a song like this before. The way she's able to have that kind of repetition of phrase and the intensity of the performance and all that stuff. And this is like a whole album of Not by Big Thief, which is just a thing if you had told me 3 months ago was about to exist, I would be preparing for it with the same kind of intensity as I was preparing for the coronavirus. Like, oh brother, that's about to hit like a category hurricane. And I would have been right, because this hit me like a fucking freight train yesterday. This album rules.
Yeah, much like my experience of the coronavirus, I had no idea this album was on the way until like in 48 hours, the shit really just exploded.
Yes.
Yep.
That's that's the best new music bump for you.
That's true.
I actually read a little. I'm reading a little bit of the review right now. You've been struggling to find a comparison, Jackson. I think I figured it out. They live in the same seaside England town where Nick Cave currently resides.
Oh damn! It really is some Nick Cave shit. That's pretty. What if Nick Cave was for the ladies? There we go.
Oh, okay. I'm scrolling through this review now. The line comparing the lyrics to Atesha Moshfegh's writing, that is also a very on point comparison. Jen Pelly, good writer. Just putting that out there. It's very much in like that sort of hop along Camp Cope sort of brand of like building towards catharsis. Like it's explosive in a way those bands can similarly be at times.
Yeah. Like first listen that I got out of it, the exactly one listen I got out of it, I heard the Interpol comparisons from y'all, and I was immediately worried because I was like, that's not my kind of thing. But this is definitely something that at least builds interest in me in the same way that, say, Hop Along would.
Yeah, I really like. It reminds me a lot of like those bands. It also reminds me of, we were mentioning earlier, like Marika Hackman in terms of her voice, but her voice does so many different things on this album. Like pinpointing just a single comparison is difficult, because she really does show off her range on this thing. Like Pop Song and Give Take, Lilac Circling, like each one of those is like such a distinct vocal performance, like one after another. And I think the whole album is like really good and like pretty conceptual in how it's talking about like these relationships and themes of like codependency and stuff like that. I think it's just really, really good and well written, and I will be so excited to see what this band does going forward, because I think this is very much like an album like the Black Midi debut album, where like it's half that this thing is already this good, but it's also like, if they're already this good, how good could they possibly be, because they do still have like reasonable room to grow, and you could totally imagine how their next album could be way better than this. And so that's what's very exciting to me as well.
Yes.
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 What just happened? I
Yeah.
zoned out.
We're slowly
The hive mind
the
is taking over.
coronavirus. It's starting to infect us all. All right, we're again. It's like I said.
I was half reading Genesis Porges' obituary and came back to that.
There is no way that we can survive both coronavirus and Cosbrain simultaneously.
No, it's gonna be a mess.
Look, I've been under Cosentine since this is my dinner, so I think I'm pretty good.
But bros, let's just vibe. Let's talk about this new Fortet. I didn't listen to it, so I have nothing to say. But y'all
Yeah,
can
I
talk
don't
about
like
it.
that.
I listened to it once yesterday. I was in the middle of a very heavy traffic jam for an hour and a half, and I gotta say, it's pretty bopping. It helped me from getting my anger out.
I've also listened to it exactly once, and I can also say that it is definitely a very nice, soothing, kind of like late night, I'm gonna lay down and drift off to sleep kind of album.
Yeah, and I think in some sense, like the way the track list is set up kind of contributes to that. So I don't know how many people who are listening right now would have heard the Burial compilation from last year that everyone was yelling about on here.
Yes.
But
Did we yell about that?
we didn't do it on the pod, but like everyone in this room was like freaking out about it, and it got me to listen to Burial for the first time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think with Fortet, this is another one of the albums, the like I think third or fourth album where like you know what to expect at this point. It's extremely like kind of meticulously crafted and very much so within the realm of like you know what to expect from this artist at this point. It's definitely within the realm of like the same vibe as New Energy, where it's like very, it's very nice and it's very kind of vibing and soothing and whatnot. Nothing I don't think that would kind of blow your socks off with Fortet, but it's pretty good.
Not enough tets.
Yeah, not
Definitely.
not nearly enough tets.
Needed more tets.
Well, hold on. Do you know what happens when you multiply Fortet by 4 tets? You get 16. You know what 16 is?
Shit.
That's the name of the album, baby.
Damn it. Oh fuck! I can't believe you've done this. Oh,
Look,
You
it's
cracked
never
the code.
look. It's never gonna be as good. It's never gonna be as good. Whenever like 2 years ago we discussed the Sleep album, how it got an 8.4 best new music, and I was like 8.4 divided by 2.
Yeah.
It's never gonna be as good.
Yeah. That was pretty great. I will agree. I like this new Fortet album a lot. I will agree that there is a certain it's a thing that happens with a lot of artists that we can kind of there's a formulaicness to their creativity and inventiveness that like becomes familiar to us in a way that even though like this album it's not that he's just churning out the same album, like this is clearly like its own statement and pretty unique in his discography, and I like it a lot. But there is also that kind of way where like he's put out so many great albums and EPs and DJ sets and things like that we're just sort of like, oh, it's more Fortet, and like we're all very happy for it. But I also think that this album in particular does have a lot of really, really, really great stuff and is a real good kind of summation to the last few years of Fortet music in between this and New Energy, where the first half, as Rose was kind of saying, it is kind of a bifurcated album similar to the Burial compilation, where the one half of it tends to lean more in a club music direction, while one half of it is more of the ambient side, which is interesting because New Energy was sort of this kind of relaxed fusion of club music and ambient that sort of stays at kind of a mellow hum the whole time, that is like has some momentum to it and has some kick drums to it, but that momentum never reaches above a certain threshold. While this album does have a little bit more dynamics, there are a couple of full-on bangers in here. Like Insect near Piha Beach particularly is like the most kind of the kick drum on that one gets real honking, and you've got a couple of other the intro track School is pretty upbeat, and the singles like Baby and Love Salad and stuff like that. But then the back half of it turns into a very kind of sound collage-y sound design thing that I kind of was expecting not was a little worried about as it was sort of progressing, but like it really is enveloping and kind of atmospheric in a way where, and the tracks are short enough, and the way the ideas progress, it really does flow kind of nicely. And if you just have it on in the background, I've only listened to the album like twice now, but the second time I was listening to it, like it really, you do just kind of settle into it in this way, because it is well paced and thought out and put together, and there's a sort of consistency and reliability with his music where you're just gonna get a sort of a level of A, craftsmanship, but B, like playfulness and creativity that you're not getting from most electronic artists. And so even though we've come to expect it from him, I do love this album and think there are some great new four-set tracks on here. Cannot wait to see him live in October, assuming music is still happening.
Oof.
But I have tickets, so we'll see.
All right. I guess we should move on, probably, to, I don't know, Jackson, did you listen to this Gallery S?
I listened like once. I've listened to the last couple of MoMA Ready releases. I like it. I think in general I'm a big fan of MoMA Ready and AceMo and the kind of trend of lo-fi club music that is both like very classic in its construction, but also is kind of forward thinking in its presentation and forward thinking, and like all these tracks are very like sort of bare bones club music, but none of them are just like very basic. Like they're all very interesting and kind of distorted and misshapen in ways that are very, very, very interesting and cool. And even though I didn't like love either of these albums, I'm definitely gonna check out more of their stuff in the future for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said about it being kind of this throwback sound to what it feels like, kind of like mid to late 90s sort of house, and I really love that era of house and techno music. You know, when it sounds a lot like a throwback Detroit techno.
Yeah, it's a lot of ghetto tech, like DJ Dion, like old school type stuff, like very fast BPM and like playful and kind of, but also like dirty and kind of distorted and rough around the edges.
Yeah, like it's very like almost like Model 500 a little bit as well. Yeah, and I just really, I don't know, I love that kind of throwback, nostalgic sound to it without it sounding too, I guess, like modern, robotic and futury, I guess, because that's very clean.
It doesn't feel like it's karaoke of old.
Yeah.
Great. It feels like the new generation, but inspired in the exact same lineage, as opposed to being like new musicians doing like their imitation of it.
Yeah, it's very much like you get like there's a certain amount of love that they poured into just reviving the sound and reviving sort of the atmosphere in the setting that this originally came up in. So I don't know. I'm really enjoying it. I'll probably, within a few more listens, it might be my favorite Bleep record of the year. I don't know yet. But my favorite Bleep record of the year so far, at least, is this next one that we're going to talk about. Ooh Baby, he's back, folks.
We have fully entered Nico season, full steam ahead. It appears.
And we're not even done. That's the scariest part.
Yeah.
We've got this. I'm honestly probably more excited for this. Like I really loved this album. Don't get me wrong. I'm a massive Against All Logic fan. Like 2012, 2017 might be my favorite Nico Jar project in total. And I like this album a lot. I do think it's definitely weaker than 2012, 2017 on kind of evaluation, because although I think it's a little more experimental and a little more out there, and as is the case with every Nico Jar album, but like especially the last two Against All Logic, like every single song on here has at least one element of like sound design that's like, how the fuck did he do that? It's so good. But I think the difference for me on this album is that with this album, I'm doing a lot more like admiring of like, oh, that was a nice production choice there, Nico. I like what you did there, as opposed to like getting into it. You know what I mean? Like, I think some of these tracks, especially the first two, are among the best he's ever put out under this pseudonym. Fantasy and If Loving You Is Wrong are just both like perfect songs. That Beyonce flip on the first track is just like, you immediately know you're in for some shit. And If Loving You Is Wrong is just a really great like mid-tempo house track with a beautiful, incredible vocal sample in it. But then like a lot of the stuff that kind of it's a lot noisier and a lot more distorted and abstract.
It's a lot more industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that, but I just think some of these songs don't quite come together. Like I really like If You Can't Do It Good, Do It Hard, and I like Defers a lot. But I think it kind of derails over that last sort of stretch there, and just isn't quite as good as the last Against All Logic album is for me, but in general is still like leaps and bounds over 90% of random house and techno records I listen to on Spotify. Sense of sound design and production, and it's just like, how do you even get stuff to sound the way he gets stuff to sound? It boggles my mind.
Jackson, I don't think you pronounced that track name correctly.
Oh, I didn't put an E. Oh, so sorry. D. Excuse me.
There we go.
There's at least 8 E's in there or something.
Yeah.
If you can't pronounce it good, pronounce it hard.
That's a great joke.
Yeah, I'm a little adverse to people kind of comparing this one with 2012 to 2017 just because of how starkly the contrast between sounds is and styles is with both of them. Because 2012 through 2017 is very clearly this like deep house homage, like thrown together kind of thing. And this is even, more so into like Nico, just like it sounds like the B-sides of like what he usually puts out like under his own name, where it's like all the like strange like ins and outs and just, blaring out and busting out every, speaker imaginable. So I really love, a lot of the sound design on this. I will agree that, other than probably If You Can't Do It Good, Do It Hard, it's not nearly as, I guess, like immediately catchy and earwormy as 2012.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the sound design and the mixing is just as strong, if not even stronger.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I kind of regard them as separate but equal. Like, unsurprisingly, of course, the industrial elements for this album like really hit for me, and I really appreciate a lot of those. And I also like, again, it's better than 90% of electronic music that's out there, but also wasn't as hot on 2012 to 2017 as other people were. Like, I think that album also has its lulls, in my opinion. And like, so does this album. But still, I really appreciated just how different it was from the previous one. And again, like every song, there's an element where you're like, well, I've never heard that before.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to stay in really steady rotation for me. And maybe even it is silly to compare, but like I'm really digging it a lot. Again, because I wasn't fully on the 2012 to 2017 train, was like a little averse to this of like, oh boy, is this going to be like another Against All Logic album that I don't love as much as other people? But like, I really, really like this. And
Yeah,
I would say it could, be one of my favorites of the year, but then like we get Nico Proper and also every other A tier bleep artist apparently.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it ends up sitting, but I love it.
Uh,
And I think if you can't do it good, do it hard goes. That was like a moment where that was like a full wig lift for me when like the drums kicked in on that. I was like, oh holy shit, he's doing this with this sample. Ugh, it's good stuff.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm very in a very similar position to Lily, where I was kind of extremely skeptical about all the AAL hype at that point. I listened to the album a couple times and it was just like, it's okay. I don't really get it that much. I'm still not that much into electronic music like other people here. Like, I do not have the authoritative taste to understand this as well as others. But at the same time, it's like I can appreciate what's going on. But this album, like, much more to me stands out. And I think it's partially because of those more brash industrial elements that kind of happen in the moment.
Yeah.
Before we move on, before we move out of the bleep head section, what were y'all's thoughts on the new Arca single, quote unquote? Which I'm doing that because it's 62 minutes long.
Yeah, that's why I haven't listened to it yet. I was like,
I got about halfway through it because, like, I don't know, just seeing like if it were like chunked up into little tracks, I would have had an easier time with it. But like seeing that giant slab of music, I was like genuinely intimidated, especially coming from like.
Yeah, I hopefully someone's split it up at this point, but I have not. I have yet to see it. But I listened to it once. I thought it was pretty. I thought it was good. I did re-listen to Mutant recently. I think Lily and Rose, you two were talking about it in the chat, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna re-listen to Mutant. I'm like, damn, I did not give this album a fair chance. And I like that album a lot at the time, and even then I'm like, damn, I really did not appreciate how fucking good this record is. It's amazing, and Arca again, we bow down to the queen.
Apparently, somebody has made an unofficial or possibly official, I don't know, track list on the Rate Your Music page, and
it's on her Instagram. She did post the track list on her Instagram. It's just I'm just waiting for somebody to split it up, so it's a little bit more digestible. But like, this is not the first time Arca has done something like this. She did do this, like I think like her first project, like right after like she got big, being like one of the like main producers on Yeezus, was like the and which is fucking amazing. It's got some of her best songs on there. But this is like, hey, so that little and thing that I did a couple years ago, yeah, what if I did that but like times 3? And it's like, all right, go for it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I haven't listened to it yet, which feels blasphemous for how I already stand Mutant. But like, it's not even that the runtime is imposing. It's just also I feel with Arca, you're gonna get so many like twists and turns and just like bizarre soundscapes out of nowhere, especially on like those single track projects of hers, like the Ampersand one and Sheep, I think. That's like, yeah, I need to like clear a day to like ready myself to listen to this. And like fully immerse myself in it for those 62 minutes, which I'm sure are bonkers and I will love.
It is pretty bonkers. I will say what I've heard, it is ridiculous.
Also, talking about high profile bleep, that Arca solo album when it drops, that's
my
big album of the year
I
contender.
mean, we've been discussing this all year in the chat, but we're really in for one in terms of all the electronic music heavyweights deciding that this is, because we've got the Arca album, we've got the Nicholas Jar solo album, we've got
Aurelia Smith.
Fortet just dropped.
Yeah.
Perhaps Jamie XX this year? Question mark? Maybe.
I could see it.
Also, the Avalanches have a question mark.
Yeah. No, they're
got a
putting out a new single like Monday, I think.
We're at about exactly 2 years out from the XX's album cycle, and I feel like Jamie is definitely going to work back on a solo album next. So I feel like that'll come in the next year or two.
I floated it in the Discord chat a few days ago because we were talking about being in full-on Nico season, but folks, We got AAL. We got a Nico, actual Nico album. What do? What's left?
Oh, no.
I don't want to say
Folks,
it. I can't dare to say it. It's too much to entertain the thought.
think about it.
Of
it.
the three-peat of Nico pseudonyms in 1 year. That would be hog. I would go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Dark Side. Is that the...
That's what we meant.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm making sure. I'm not always good at catching
Matty.
the bit. Look, all these fucking bleep people, they all have like 3 different projects. I don't know which is which, you know. Like
It is true.
This is such a boomer bleep take.
all bleep are
Got all these names.
all
Producer
all-
only had one name that they stuck to.
all bleep artists do is
And it
drop.
started with DJ and it never changed.
All bleep artists do is drop mixes on SoundCloud, drop projects under 3 different pseudonyms, eat hot chip, and lie. That's all they do.
You know what, Boomer? Here's 3 albums in a row that I'm pretty sure you put on the docket.
Yeah. I'm all
And
I
I-
Look,
say
like
that-
I said, it's
I've
my
heard
time.
2 out of
It's
3 of them, and
my
I don't want to talk
time.
about either of them.
It's my time.
my favorite music artist is the other account for Fortet has on Spotify. That's just like a long series of Wingdings characters.
Yeah.
Literally, you're proving my point. You're literally proving my point.
That's where Fortet puts like all the B-sides now. Basically, is that weird page. I am proving your point. Fuck off.
You should probably stop yourself.
Okay. Anyways, this is my corner now. You know, you had the bleep heads. They had their corner. This is my corner, real quick. First and foremost, this new Navy Blue album. It is fucking great. If you loved the most recent Earl output, this has got to be on the top of your docket. It's really fucking great. My favorite hip hop album of the year so far. Probably. I mean, I know there's the Rap Ferrara Milo album that's out, but this Navy Blue album is a lot more approachable to me, and there's a lot more I've been able to dig into. I really like his approach to flow. It's very free form, but very natural in a way. Like, I actually listened to a couple of Mike's albums the other day, and I think Mike is very good, but there's definitely there's still a level of accessibility that isn't totally there, especially in his most recent stuff. He's definitely been going further into a more experimental direction these last couple records, but this new album, it still has this sort of casual approach to flow, but in a way that works. It's not like Blueface, where like you have these very structured beats, and then the fact that he goes completely off beat is like, what the fuck is this guy doing? This is like the way that these beats are structured, and the way that Navy Blue is rapping. It's very free form, and it's very there's a lot to dig into this record. It's really great. If you if you love these recent Earl albums, you got to give this a shot. This and also the Mavi album that dropped last year is also some very good stuff. But again, there's some really exciting hip hop coming out now amongst this like slums scene. I think that's sort of the group that's been putting out all these projects lately.
The standing on the corner guys, the Sloss and Malone, whatever you want to call that kind of wave.
It's definitely very exciting. It's some of the most exciting hip hop coming out right now. So hey, get on the ground floor. Get on the ground floor. This album is great. The new Disq album, another one of my favorite records of the year so far. Basically, what if Parquet Courts but for the teens? You know, what if Parquet Courts for the teens? But again, I really love this record. It's sort of an interesting mix of like Parquet Courts, Alex G, and then like a little bit of Joyce Manor. But this record, again, it's really fantastic. A really great debut record. One of the ones that I'm most excited about this year. Not everyone's on the train, but I really enjoy this one a lot. A lot of good stuff here. There's a love song about a microphone. All right, like
That song made me so fucking angry to listen to. I don't know why. Just like the further I got into it, I just felt a deep irrational hatred for this band.
Look, I get it, but like, calm down. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, Rose. Calm down. All right. There's much more pretentious stuff out there. All right.
I hate the Zoomers. I may be a Zoomer, but goddamn, I hate the Zoomers.
Look, it's good Zoomer music. Okay, like it's good stuff. And then finally, look, folks, it happens. I've been on another Joyce Manor kick again, and I'm here to say that this is the take that's been brewing in my head, and I've been scared to put it out in the world because I don't know if I can fully stand by it. But I think I love. Well, here's the thing. I know that I love Of All Things I Will Soon Grow Tired. Like, literally, I almost had, like, a manic episode, and I was going to get it tattooed on my body until I was like, I can't do this right now. I can't do this right now with coronavirus and my bank account. Like, no. Like, I just can't. I can't take that hit. But I think I like Of All Things I Will Soon Grow Tired more than Never Hungover Again. I might say that.
That is a take.
I really love that. Like I said, it's great.
I need to get into my Of All Things phase because I am still, as I told you the other day, just sort of. I mean, I've been into Joyce Manor for a while now, but I've just started really getting into some of their other records, and so I definitely need to spend more time with that one. But if you're allowed to plug bands that didn't put out records in 2020, I'm going to plug a band that doesn't even exist anymore, and they're called Weed, and they put out 3 albums in the 2010s, and they no longer exist, and their biggest song has like 40,000 plays, but they're a shoegaze band, and they're called Weed, and they're the only band I listen to now besides the stuff I listened to for this episode. All I do is listen to this band. They're really,
the only
really
band
great.
besides everything else.
Well, I've listened to all 3. I started listening to them this week, and because I don't have work or stuff to do, I've listened to all 3 Weed albums now, like multiple times each, and they're really, really great. If you like shoegaze and post-punk and stuff like that, they're kind of noise pop, shoegaze, little kind of metally a little bit, but not really, and their vocals are very, like, I don't know how to describe it. They're very good. I like them a lot. Go check them out if you're looking for some more shoegaze and you want to support a band that doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
Back to the recent stuff. The new U.S. Girls album. What's it called again?
Heavy Light.
Oh, Heavy Light. I want to get everyone else's take on this because I feel like I've heard good things in the chat, but I've also heard, I also have some opinions. Not a lot, but enough.
So I think I'm kind of mixed on this because like the good tracks on here are so damn good. Like especially the singles, obviously, For American Dollars and Overtime are like probably 2 of the best songs of the year and ones I keep coming back to.
See that's
as well as that.
I'm gonna say that's funny because I was discussing this album with my girlfriend and she was like, For American Dollars is maybe the most annoying song I have ever heard. Which I don't fully disagree with. I don't fully disagree with that.
I like For American Dollars, but in general have had a hard time fully getting on the U.S. Girls bandwagon. I think her songwriting is really, really, really incredible, and I tend to like reading about U.S. Girls albums more than I like listening to them, which is kind of harsh, but is generally how I feel because I think she's a really, really fascinating writer, and the people who really connect with her music clearly are getting something really interesting out of it. But I often find the actual like style that she goes for in her music is not something that I'm particularly connecting with a lot, although I do like this album a fair amount and I like the singles a lot, and I also really want to shout out the fucking sound collage interludes on this album make me cry so much. They're so beautiful and sincere, and like especially like the Advice to Teenage Self one where people like give advice what they would say to themselves, and the way that she has them overlap and flow over top each other. She's a very, very talented and interesting artist who clearly puts a lot of thought into her records, and I always find a lot to appreciate in them if I'm like approaching them from a critical lens, but I don't really find myself revisiting them just because I haven't really gotten into her whole thing yet, but I admire it a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
I'm kind of
I think
I like this a lot more. I like this more than her last record, but at the same time, like I think Half Free is it's such a great record, and I feel like she's gone. There, I'm trying to remember. There's one song when I was listening to them, I was like, oh, so like she made this song, and she was like, wow, this is like the best song I ever wrote. Let me just make the rest of my albums like this. I think it's Window Shades. It's like, okay, I made Window Shades. Holy shit, this is the best song I've ever made. Let me make 2 more albums just based on that song. And that's a disappointing thing because I feel like Half Free is is a really great, interesting record because of the explorations it has sonically. There's a lot of really it's a record that goes in a lot of different ways, and I feel like these last 2 records have been kind of one note in a way. I'm just not a fan of like sort of like soul Motown revival. The sound on here, it's just it sometimes works, but for the most part, something's not clicking with
see,
me.
but that's like the thing in my opinion is like this record devolves from that heavily and goes into like
Which
way
yes,
more
which is why I like this more than the
slow
last one.
piano stuff, and that's what bores me the most on this record. It's just like there's a giant chunk in the middle where there's just like not much going on
S-
compared to like
See,
the heavily produced like they talk about a lot in the press for this album, like, oh yeah, she got a really big band for this record, and she's like leveling up, but you can't tell half the time.
see,
Yeah,
See, I think the middle is where it starts to pick up a little bit more, and I think by the end, I get really into this record. I'm like, wow, it's really picking up by the end. But then, of course, the album just like is over, and it's like, oh, just when I was like starting to like really get into it, you know?
And I will say, like, her choice for the final track is extremely odd, especially like when you consider where it's coming from, because like Redford Radio is a song from US Girls on KRAK, I believe, which is
On
one of
crack.
her. Yeah, yeah, on KRAK. That's literally like the abbreviation, whatever. But like it's from like she decided to take several songs on this album from her really old like tape experiment music, which was like all centered around noise and like really basic melodies.
What?
And so
Wait,
it's just
what?
really weird her.
What song is it on? What song is it on crack? The
Uh,
Redford Radio.
hang on. Yeah, Redford Radio, that's what I was saying. So the final track, like it's just very odd that she decided to end the album on a song that is like very based around simplicity. Like there's not much changed from the original arrangement beyond just like some making it more pristine, I guess. And
See,
so it's just a very odd and disparate ending.
See, I disagree because I think Red for Radio is maybe the best song on the album. It's where things like that's where it's like, oh shit, this album maybe get like may start getting like really interesting, and then it just kind of ends.
It is a
Because
really good song, and I really like it, but it does not fit here at all.
I mean, like I said, I think the way the album evolves, I think that's why I think this album it's starting to grow on me a bit more because it does start off sort of more like Motown, kind of more cheerful, like 70s style kind of soul music. And then it's sort of the way it kind of the sound collages that Jackson was mentioning, and then sort of going in a bit more experimental direction, like her last couple records. It's like okay, it's starting to like really grab me, and then by the time the album ends, it's like oh, like that's it, like oh, like I don't know. I wonder if there's going to be a quick follow up to this record or not, because I feel like there's a lot of themes in this record that like I want more because I feel like Half Free was the best sort of combination of like this most recent direction she's going in, and the obviously like the tape experiment stuff she was initially doing. And I feel like in a way it feels like the end of this album is like kind of starting to come back to that a little bit, uh, but it doesn't really follow up on that. You know, it's
I get what you mean. Yeah.
I want to like this album. The thing with U.S. Girls is that I want to like this record and I want to like her last record so much more, but like I it's weird that like that In a Poem Unlimited seemed Half Free we piqued the interest for us, but In a Poem Unlimited really was like a big breakout for her. That was the record that like a lot of people really started paying attention to Make Remy, but it never really grabbed me a whole bunch. But like I said, I'm glad that she has gotten really, really big in the last couple of years, especially because of Impoma Limited. And I hope people really enjoy this record. But like, there's a lot of potential in this, and it's not fully met for me. But again, Red for Radio is a fucking amazing track, and I think it's a great ending. Despite the fact that I kind of wish there was more, I still think it's a great end of the album for me, just for how much it stands out. Because it's really ominous, and it's really a really interesting end to the record that's, for the most part, starts off like, you know, at least sonically very cheerful and sort of in on this sort of kind of almost Gregorian chant-esque track, you know, sort of ominous, like, oh shit, are we about to transition into the Halo soundtrack? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, it's better than the last one, but I really hope that I really hope she kind of abandons this fucking like soul music revival shit. I don't enjoy it. I really like the more experimental stuff on her early records, especially Half Free, and like I think what made Half Free unique was that it was like very much like, okay, this is Meg Remy, like this is like such an individual record, you know. And these last ones have been kind of bogged down in collaborations, and I feel like it's weird. There's some artists where it feels like, okay, like if they had another person in the room or like they were collaborating with somebody, I feel like they'd be a lot better. Kevin Parker. But for some artists, you know, sometimes it's best just to leave them to their own devices and see what they come up with. And I feel like Meg Remy has been writing in a much more collaborative fashion, and I feel like that's just done some hindrance to her music, you know. There's just sort of an edge, a weirdness to her work that's just solely missing, and I want it back. And I feel like there's parts of this album where like that is back, but not completely. So I have way more thoughts than I thought I was gonna have on this record. But that's all I gotta say. Unless we had some more thoughts, we can kind of keep moving through this list because we still have a lot more to discuss.
Ooh, this next one hurt me personally.
Jackson,
no thoughts, head empty.
Speak on it, Jackson. Speak on it.
In the year 2017, King Cruel released my second favorite album of that year of all genres and types of music, and I did not even finish this album. It is so boring and not good, and is just, while The Ooze is like this brilliant like album that I think in an incredible way manages to evoke the feeling, like the experiences of depression, while this album just sounds like what depression feels like in a way that is not a cool artistic experiment and is just like, this album sounds deflated. It seems like kind of half-baked.
It seems like it seems like the opposite of the Dan Behar situation we were talking about, of him recording parts of Kaput while like his daughter is just playing around the room. It seems like this is like the antithesis of that, of like, oh, he's recording this while his daughter's in the room. He's just fucking tired and miserable, and this is what we get. And it's like, oh fuck it, I gotta pay the bills. I gotta go on tour. Like, oh fuck. All right, I'll put out an album. Sure, why not? And yeah, it just I'm with you that this album bored me to tears. I think I listened to it. And I was like, that kind of sucked. I was like, that wasn't a good album. What's going on here? Like, I didn't hate the singles, and I really like The Ooze. Like, is this like, why don't I like this album? Like, what's going on here? But like, yeah, it's just it's a stinker. It's a big old stinker.
I've never been on the King Cruel train, but frankly, what the fuck was this album? Like, I'm still even more confused. Like, Drag On was a single?
I think Drag On is a single that actually kind of kicks ass in like a weird subversive kind of way.
I mean, yeah, Baby Blue was no, not Baby Blue. What was the song from The Ooze? The Lonely Blue. Oh, Check One was the opening single of The Ooze.
That's right. Also, yeah.
Which is also like one of the most despondent, like he's so obsessed with these kind of mopey songs that like he doesn't even have a sense of, like, he almost intentionally chooses stuff as singles that is like he's just not really interested in making songs that kind of have a sort of pop tangible sensibility to them, and that's fine by me because I really on the Ooze I think it works where that's just an album that's like I haven't revisited it in a while, but like it's when I'm in the mood for specifically that album, it's like such a perfect album to like we were talking about with Holy Fawn earlier, like it's a wallowing album where like I want to be in this exact headspace and hang out there and just be completely immersed by it. And this album, even though it maintains that same kind of depressive mood, there's nothing immersive about it. Like I'm sitting there waiting for it to do something, and it's like moping along, as opposed to like I feel engulfed by the same feelings that he is trying to communicate. It's just a little bit of a bummer, and it feels like I wasn't expecting to get like when he was releasing singles. I was like, wait, is this like an album, or is this like a EP or whatever? And it's like, nope, this is an album for real. Like this is coming out, and like I'm like, you sure? You positive?
Wasn't this one also like another like Dan Behar situation where it's a dad fucking around with his kids in the background?
Oh, that's right. He is a dad now.
Yeah, that was my bit at the beginning because he became a father in between this album and the Ooze. So he's just fucking around. He's like, true. Shit, I gotta pay the bills. Like, oh fuck. Like, I got a family to support now.
Another one.
I gotta make another one. I can't take 4 years this time. Fuck.
I really think the problem here is that he was already incredibly tired and insomnia stricken, and then he had a baby and got more tired. It's just he was already a sleepy boy, and he's
making lullabies for himself.
It's not what you want. Unfortunately, we can move on.
We can. Do we even want to talk about? I didn't listen to the Grimes album. I have no interest.
I did not listen to the Grimes album. I don't have the time or patience.
Please don't make me talk about the Grimes album.
We're not gonna make time with the Grimes album.
I refuse to listen to the Grimes album.
Okay, good. Let's move on then.
Solidarity.
I listened to the Grimes album. I regret it.
Okay. Did anyone listen? I listened to the first part of the new Moses Sumney album that's out now.
I feel like we should discuss it until it's a whole.
Well, yeah, we'll wait till. But so far, I've never been that big on Moses Sumney. It's definitely a step up in a way, but I'm still like, what's not clicking? What's not clicking?
I'm certainly more interested than I was with his first album that everyone was freaking out about, but like, I'm still like,
It's like, okay, you got Daniel Lopatin on the production on some of this stuff. Okay, you got my interest.
That explains a lot, actually.
Let's see how this turns out in the whole thing. Oh boy, these next 3 records I put on. Bambara record, it's fucking garbage. It's like cowboy post-punk, but it doesn't sound as cool as that implies. It's fucking garbage. Some people on Indieheads were hyping it up. It's fucking shit. I saw them open for Idols. They had big, like, I saw them open for Idols a couple years ago, and like, you know, the way that the frontman was, he was like going like berserk, and he's like thinks he's way cooler than he actually is. That's the problem with a lot of like this like most recent wave of like UK post-punk, is that like all these guys think they're way fucking cooler than they actually are.
They every single one of them thinks they're the lead singer of Ice Age, is what they all
exactly
think they are.
This is why like I love Black Midi and why I love like Black Country New Road, is that like, look at Jordy Greep. Like, look at Jordy Greep.
There's no sense at all of ego in his performance. He is just like, I'm gonna speak some gobbledygook.
Yeah, look at the
while there are so many in the kind of explosion of like post-punk sound like bands, there are lots of lead performers who are like trying to affect craziness or dirtiness or whatever, and those are just always going to feel like a chore to sit through, as opposed to the actual, like, it's like if you aren't naturally like an Alexis Marshall type performer, like you're just not gonna be like that by trying to like act like that. Like, it's just like some people can go up on stage and put other people's fingers in their mouth for an hour and a half and are built for that lifestyle. And most post-punk front people aren't, you know. It's just like,
if you went to
by the way, I've talked about this. Daughters was very. It's good that they wrapped up their tour exactly when they did, because now that they happened to take a hiatus to go work on new music right before the coronavirus took out, which was a relief because they would have had to cancel their tour faster than anyone. The way the sanitation habits of Daughters
at
show,
the same time,
but
at the same time, Jackson, if you went to a Daughters concert and Alexis Marshall put your hands or your finger in his mouth, you're immune from coronavirus.
That is true.
You're immune. But yeah, this member, and this is also why I like Black Country. Okay, to go back to my previous thought, why I like Black Country New Road a lot, because like, there's no like I'm cooler than I am. Like literally, like both of their songs they put out so far, it's literally like I'm so bad at fucking. Like here are 2 songs about how terrible I am at having sex. It's good stuff. All right. It's good stuff. But speaking of pretentious frontmen, let's talk about the new Porches album, or I will talk about it.
Brother.
This fucking it stinks.
Only you have the brainworms to keep listening to Porches albums.
I really do.
I
gotta keep tabs. I gotta keep tabs.
Porches album thing.
I understand.
Like I think the thing with the whole Currents debacle is that, like, you know, Kevin Parker, like, I think people forget that, like, you know, Kevin Parker, he is my main nemesis, but like Aaron Main is like my side nemesis. He's like he's my little side piece that I check in on and see how terrible he's doing. And this new album fucking sucks. It's so bad. It's not as bad as The House, because the thing with The House, why that album is so bad, because like the whole concept of it was that, like, okay, all these songs, I'm going to make all these songs in one day, or at the very least, like the framework of these songs I'm going to make in one day. And basically it was just like, I'm going to put all my terrible ideas out there, no filter. Like, Dev Hynes is feeding me this terrible bullshit. Oh god, do you know the video of like the skinny naked white dude being thrown in like a dungeon? That's Dev Hynes is the guy throwing. Aaron May is the guy being thrown in the dungeon by Dev Hynes. Like, you stay here and you turn out whatever bullshit you do. But no, this album it's not as bad as The House, because it's like, okay, he's actually like workshopping these songs a little more. He's actually trying a little bit, but like, it fucking stinks, man. I can't quite put my finger on why it's so bad, because, like, you know, I love Pool. I will still stand by that record being great, but he's definitely just gone so far up his ass that it's just, you know, he's unrecognizable, you know?
Like, yeah, there's a certain depth to which you can go up your own ass to which you never return, and it's just sort of one of those things where it's just like, this guy is never gonna be like, I don't know. Yeah,
he's too far gone. He's too far gone. Like, the reason why this album is not as bad as The House, like, obviously, for one, it's not following that stupid concept, but also I think, like, I think the response to The House kind of humbled him a little bit, being like, okay, maybe I actually should, like, try on these songs. And 2, I think, like, your supermodel girlfriend breaking up with you, like, that also humbles you a little bit, you know? It's like, that makes you take a slight step back. Not far enough of a step back, mind you, but, you know, a slight step back. But this album sucks. The best song is the bonus track. That's actually a good song. But other than that, this album is stinky, and I don't know why I don't know why I continue to do this to myself. But you know what? It's always fun to keep tabs on your enemies, you know. It's always fun. But this next record, so we discussed on the last like official podcast, we discussed 100 Gex, and 1000 Gex was one of our favorite albums of the year. Was it number 2 or number 3? I'm trying to. Oh yeah, number 3. We had it at number 3, which again, honestly, we if I redid my rankings, it would have been our album of the year, and I would have been very proud of that fact. But, you know, the reason why 100 Gex for me works, and why 1000 Gex works so much, is that it is genuine weirdness. It's like, here are these 2 fucking kids from the St. Louis suburbs, and like, who just are. I think what explains 1000 Gex a lot, they're both children of divorce, which I think that explains a lot about how that album is and how they turned out.
Children of divorce and the internet.
It's a deadly combination, but it works for the Gex. It is genuine weirdness because like the influences they have, these are not cool influences. It's like fucking like crunkcore and like Warped Tour pop punk from like the late 2000s. Like these are not cool influences, but they infuse them in such a unique way, and they're both just great songwriters. Like both Laura Les and Dylan Bray, they're just so fucking good at writing songs together that like it's the little train that could, you know, it just keeps on chugging. But The Garden, you know, this is like, you know, from what I know about 100 Gex, you know, they're both like, you know, relatively like middle class, upper middle class, you know, kids from the suburbs. So they're in St. Louis, which is like, here's the thing. St. Louis upper middle class kids are like, you know, like normal middle class or even like lower middle class in like other cities like New York and especially LA. The Garden, this is trust fund kid weirdness. You know, these are two trust fund kids who are like, this is like, yeah, we're weird, we're unique, you know, we're wearing like goth clothing, you know, and sometimes it's like, okay, this is like genuinely weird, but at the same time it's like, okay, like, you know, being in a new metal and being in a drum and bass, these are not weird in 2020. Like these are like, this is cool kid behavior.
And it's also the kind of people you could tell got into this stuff now, as opposed to people that are genuinely like it's not being done. It's being done like ironically or whatever.
Yeah, it's like you know,
or like the kind of it's music for the kind of people who now dress goth but made fun of goth people 10 years ago. Like
exactly
that kind of vibe.
Exactly, and I don't think this is not a bad record. I think this is not bad. It's because the first time I tried listening to this, I had to turn it off. I'm like, no, this is like too Zoomer for me. I can't do this. But I did go back to it, and I thought it was like it's but at the same time, it's just like it reeks of trust fund kid. It just reeks of it. You know, it's like these two American Apparel models. You know, American Apparel that went bankrupt, and these two kids, they got lost. They're like, what do we do now? And then, you know, they somehow got a deal with Epitaph. They're like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. And so this is just how it's been ever since.
They wandered from American Apparel to Hot Topic somehow.
Exactly. I mean, no. Hot Topic is no. That's like Hot Topic is like. Here's the thing: if you shop at Hot Topic, you watch pro wrestling for some reason. Like you got into pro wrestling in your mid-20s. You know, like that's Hot Topics. That's their market nowadays. This is like it's like the high end thrift store. You know, it's the high end thrift store in the most like gentrified district of your major city. You know, for St. Louis, that's like Avalon. For LA, I'm not the expert here. Jackson would have to tell me what
I don't know. It's all of them.
It's all of them. But
it's a plague upon my people in our city, is what it is.
Look, I've hated on LA Brain for a while now, and the fact that Jackson has turned out normal because he went to school in the Midwest during his formative years.
Okay, that genuinely helps, but I will also testify, as I've said many times, that the worst cases of LA Brain are not LA natives, it's the transplants. The transplants are the ones who get addicted to it the most and are the worst.
I agree with this. This is absolutely true.
And so part of why I also turned out normal is because it's the perfect combo of having other experiences and also being close enough to it in high school that I kind of like learned what not to do by proximity to dweebs. Anyways,
yeah, it's all right. There again, it's fine.
LA music.
Look, if you have TikTok installed on your phone right now, you should probably listen to this record. You should probably listen to the record. I do appreciate somewhat the drum and bass stuff. It's like, okay, I have some appreciation for this. That a band is like,
you know who did that better is Death Grips. Death Grips did that better.
This is true. Like I said, it's just I watched the video. There's a video, a really great channel, Trash Theory, great channel about music. They just did a video today about The Prodigy, and there's a lot of that influence in this new Garden record, a lot. But it's just it's not the same. It's not the same. But. Yeah, let's finish this up. We got 3 more albums to discuss that we have on the list. Some of these will be a little longer than others. Some of these are, I don't know. Soccer Mommy, I like it a lot. It's
it's not the step up that you kind of want it to be after the last one, because with a debut album, or it wasn't even her debut actually. I think she has like two albums before it, but with Clean, which is her breakout album, it's just sort of like with the first album you kind of have this sort of, you're like, oh, I'm just checking this out to see what it is, and if I get a couple of songs out of this, I'm kind of happy. And then on the second album, you've been listening to those couple of songs you like, and you kind of want it to all come together. And this just sort of feels like it's a step up in terms of the kind of ambition of it a little bit, but also not quite enough that it feels like a dramatic departure. Like she's got some longer songs here. There's like a 7-minute song and a 5.5-minute song, and there's some cool stuff going on in general. But it's just like it's kind of like a half step up. It's like, all right, yeah, like we probably would have wanted to see more growth, but also there's just enough that I'm also not like, oh, there's nothing here. It's like there's definitely something here, but this isn't it either. This isn't like the one that's gonna break her or whatever. She's still like a great songwriter. I mean, like Your Dog and Still Clean and Cool, and a couple of those like great singles from that last album are still songs that I will play every once in a while and are really, really, really good and catchy. And even though I don't think this album quite has the same single power as the last one, I think in general it's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I will say this is late in the podcast, so like only like the most dedicated fans are listening. And
anyone who's listening, this is psychotic. Continue.
No snitches, no snitches. But they kind of bungled the release of this album a little bit. It got kind of bungled.
A little bit.
Just because I have this like, so like, okay, for some reason they're like, so the plan nowadays for a lot of these records, for some reason I kind of get it, but at the same time it's still like, I don't know why artists do this. So they'll release like the first single and they won't have any album announcements. Just like, okay, hey, here's a single. You know, there might be an album. You just have to wait and find out. And it's just like, just tell me when the album is fucking coming out, because like you know when it's coming out. So just fucking say so.
It's people were learning the wrong lessons from Beyonce, where they're like, the key to releases is surprise, and it's like, no, they can't be a general rule. For most artists that are still developed, the whole point of the Beyonce surprise release is that she did it because she's like, let me show you what I can pull off because I'm Beyonce.
I wouldn't say it's that, because it's not like the album is being surprise released, but I'm just saying that like dropping a single and playing this album but not really having any news behind it. It's like I get not wanting to have it all in one go, but like I even with like the whole, with like the way that Spotify has changed the music economy, I get releasing singles between albums, you know, just sort of like, hey, to promote a tour or something. Like I totally get that, but this I don't get it totally still. But I've gotten used to it.
But I also feel like sometimes maybe they do that just so that they can continue to fudge that around or whatever. I don't know.
But I get it, because it's like, okay, the album is like, we're still trying to figure everything out with it, but like this song is done and it's going to be on the album, but like we don't have all the details yet because like we literally like just turned it in essentially. So
I do agree with you. Sometimes it is very, very, very dumb the way that they do that, where there's like, here's a single that should be building toward the release of something, but because we're so far away from the old consumption model of how this is supposed to work, it's like people have just sort of like, we'll be like, oh, we release the single and then we'll do there's no kind of forward momentum. Like, all right, here's a single, and then in 2 months you're going to get the album and we're going to get hype. Because I feel like the labels are sort of they don't have faith that we're going to keep interest in that cycle with so much other stuff going on. And so there's just sort of like, okay, we're going to put out a single and hope this can get on playlists or whatever. And then we're just going to when we dump the album, we're going to try to blast it into people's algorithm feeds, because that's the way people are getting music or whatever. And so they're not wanting to spend as much on marketing. So they're just keeping it a secret until 2 weeks before. But I really do agree that it definitely does a disservice to lots of these artists, where like this album especially, like this happens with early year releases often, but this album especially was one of those like, wait, this is coming, where there was no fanfare at all, even though that Soccer Mommy record was a record that like got a lot of love from music journalist types and felt like there could have maybe been a momentum build to this album had it been covered in a different way. So I don't it's really in the end not really worth a whole lot of hubbub anyways, but it's also pretty decent and worth checking out if you liked the last Soccer Mommy album, or if you didn't, maybe check this one out. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel
Yeah.
like even especially more so now, like with the bullshit going on in the music industry, with the virus, like I feel like a lot of the stuff from earlier is going to get swallowed up into a void because of this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think like the most like these upcoming album releases, everything from like now until maybe like part of May, I think everything's still gonna go according to plan. But like after that, who fucking knows? Like I think we're gonna see like the summer is already there's already a bit of a dip in the summer in terms of releases, but like
Yeah,
there's
especially because
really gonna be a big dip.
and anyone that is a major artist, because touring is such a part of the whole point of releasing an album now anyways, like anyone who had a later year release, if touring continues to be impacted that late into the year, like it really could fuck up a lot of release schedule stuff for this year, which is shitty. It's not what you want as a fan of culture.
Yeah. But I was gonna talk about how this release of this album got bungled. Like so the first single thing, as I've said, I don't like it, but I understand it a little bit. I understand it. I've accepted it because like I said, I've been doing this Indieheads moderator stuff for a while. I've been doing stuff with PR. I get it. I understand at this point. However, to drop a second single with like a fucking short film and not announce an album is like what the fuck are you doing? This is clearly building towards an album, but like you're not announcing an album. Like I don't understand what you're doing. And so, like, and of course, and especially me being like, what the fuck are you doing? Made more sense when people found like the album info, like it leaked on the Loma Vista website. People were like, oh yeah, here's the press photo, here's the album cover. It's coming out in February 28th. And then it didn't get announced. And it's just like, and like I had her PR being like, hey, can you like remove this? And it's like, there's literally nothing we can do. It's like, this is like, it's not against
On your website.
it's not against our rules. Like I don't know, and of course in the back of my head, like no disrespect to the people I work with, because again, the people I do these AMAs with, they are great. They're really awesome to work with. But sometimes it's just like you got to know that stuff is out of our hands, and you got to realize that, like, hey, I would have maybe done this differently, so this would not be an issue. So of course the info leaks, and it gets officially announced a couple days later. But like it's kind of deflated because it's like, well, like
Yeah.
we kind of figured this out already. And then of course the album leaked like about a month early, and they were again being like, hey, can you do something about this? And it's like, literally, as long as the leak is not being posted on the subreddit, there's like nothing we can really do here.
Yeah.
It's like if you maybe like sort of had like a somewhat normal album announcement cycle for this, it wouldn't have leaked so early. Maybe like maybe if it didn't put out two singles without an album announcement, maybe this sort of thing wouldn't have snowballed like this.
Yeah.
But the album, here's the thing: the album is gonna do fine. She's been blowing up like crazy. Signed to a bigger label. Like Loma Vista is a very it's a pretty major indie. It's like sort of like XL essentially. So really just building to that point.
It's one of the kind of blue blood indie labels.
Like I said, this album's gonna do fine. It's already getting some big playlist things. Although now with the touring, I don't really, because I'm supposed to see her in a month, and I don't.
That's
really,
not happening.
That's probably not happening. I think people are kind of hoping that like by the end of March or like early April, this shit will kind of. It's not going to. I hate to fucking say it, but like this shit is going to. I get maybe by May things will kind of return to normal a little bit, but like the way that the administration has been handling it. And this, especially this country, Americans are fucking stupid. They're fucking stupid.
American can confirm.
We're so fucking stupid. It's like
Hey.
like some of us are fucking stupid, and then some of us the system is fucking stupid because it doesn't allow us to do these things.
You know what we do have solitude in at least? At least the Australians are also stupid.
Oh man, these Australians are so fucking stupid.
Which is our segue.
Oh.
They gave Tom Hanks coronavirus. Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, we can't harp on them for that because he also got tested because he was in Australia and not in our dog shit country.
This is true. Okay, we're okay. The new Tame Impala record. I have like nothing to say about this record. It is so. In a way, I feel peace I feel peace because this record is so boring. There's nothing to discuss with this record. It's just a really boring record. It's just Kevin Parker took way too long to stew on this, and there's nothing interesting or exciting or baffling about this album. It's just like a really boring record. And my life finally knows peace once again.
It feels weirdly for it being called the slow rush. It would be an album that would make like 1,000 times more sense if it had come out like a year and a half after Currents. Like if he had churned this out super quickly after Currents, it would be like, okay, he's just kind of doing another shade of Currents.
Currents 1.5.
Exactly, but that's it. Really does feel like he took this long hiatus where he's collaborating with all these other different kinds of artists and thinking about how do I reimagine the Tame Impala sound to get even bigger. And after all these experiments and time off and touring, he came back to the studio and he was like, I don't know, a phaser again, maybe. It's just clear that like
everyone, Kevin Parker.
As much as he's trying to figure out how he's billing himself, like I'm the next Max Martin or I'm gonna do this or that. It's just like he makes vibes music, and he has figured out how to take the language of psych rock and translate it for the kind of modern genre fusing music that people want to listen to on streaming services, and he's real good at it, and he serves his niche well enough that I don't have the same kind of rage in my heart for him that Matty does, even though I totally get what your gripes are, and I genuinely have the same gripes that prevent me from being like the world's #1 Tame Impala stan. But this album I've listened to it like once or twice. It's good background music, not great acting. We can move on.
Snore.
But I would probably have the last take here. So I fucking hate this album. I had to listen to it from like 3 different housemates who were all playing it on their speakers the same day.
I'm so glad I'm not in college anymore. This would be unavoidable.
I don't know if I told this story on a podcast before, but I when I was in college in Chicago, I took a nap on the couch and I woke up to my roommate playing Currents on vinyl, and I was so mad.
Maddie's eyes just like burst open. There's something wrong.
But like I'd already heard it a week before. I was already like, this is bullshit, and it's just like it's not even just boring. It's like offensively boring. Like I just listened to it and my eyes immediately start glazing over. It's just like Kevin Parker looked at his for me. And he's like, I've been listening to a lot of Supertramp lately. Anything else? No.
That's about it. Yeah, I don't know.
But I think we can all agree that we should move on to something better, something with no features, no Swedish songwriters, no trap beats, just 100% pure uncut rock. Talking about Dogleg.
Hell yes, of course. Dogleg is the official Ian Cohen band of 2020.
Frankly, he is on an extreme roll the last 2 years. Between this and Glass Beach, it is a wonder to see.
Although I get the hype on this a lot more than Glass Beach, as someone who has yet to fully embrace the Glass Beach train. This is just very, very, it's very, very straightforward in its appeal. It's like, what if Pup but faster?
What if Captain Jazz is back?
Yes, and it is very, 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 very fun and high energy, and definitely a kind of rock that we're in more need of. And Fox is one of the best singles of the year, and those gang vocals really do be honkin'. And I think this album it perfectly delivers on the premise of what Fox promised as a single, which is this kind of euphoric but also pretty hard-hitting, chaotic punk music that is clearly made by some nerds who play a lot of Super Smash Bros. Melee and talk shit about it. And clearly they had a lot of like fun making this album, and their shows are just the energy of their live performances, especially like the Fox music video and stuff, is just like this is music that is made for moshing and for house show just madness.
I caught them as an opener last year for like a 4-band bill, I believe it was. And by the end, the guitarist was just like laying backwards on the ground, like writhing on the floor, just mashing the guitar, and it was incredible to see.
Yeah, it's like pure energy music is the thing that carries them forward. But they're also like that's the thing I think that distinguishes them though, is that they are so talented in their playing that they can play fast and tight to a level. It's not just like, oh, we're gonna go crazy. Like they're operating at breakneck speeds because they can, because they're talented enough. I also think, I'm pretty sure they're University of Michigan graduates, so they're officially
they're from a very specific frat there, which also turned out Pity Sex and a couple other notable guitar bands in the last few years.
Yeah, shout out to Ann Arbor guitar bands. They're definitely the Ann Arbor band I like the most, easily dethroning what's it called, Wolfpack.
I think, God,
yeah,
the sad thing about all these tour cancellations is the fact that the dogleg, that no one can, the thing.
No one's gonna get to appreciate this album the way it should be, which is in pit.
It's a
live and loud.
Exactly, but also the fact that no one is going to be able to defeat their bass play. Who's the one who's really good at Smash?
The bass player.
That no one is going to be able to defeat their bass player at Smash at the merch table to get a free T-shirt. That's just,
well, that's just
he's
not
still undefeated.
It's not going to happen anyway, so it's a little bit pointless.
But the chance, it's the fact that it could happen.
I mean, in this interim period where we're without live music, maybe they could just pursue a Smash Bros. Pro career.
Exactly. So again, if any Indieheads podcast fans are listening to this, get really, really good at Smash Bros. In this time. Get really fucking good. Not again, not the one on the fucking Switch. Get the one on the GameCube, because that's the one all the pros play. So get really good at that game. Just keep fucking playing it. Just keep going. And then eventually
go to a dogleg show.
And eventually go to a dogleg show, because they will have a little CRT monitor and a GameCube, and they will have Smash Brothers there, and the bass player will be sitting, and he'll be waiting for you. And you can defeat him and win a free T-shirt, and then you can ship it to me at my home. DM me at Monorail Prince. I will give you my address, and I will pay for shipping and the T-shirt itself.
I just can't believe that there's a emo rock power pop band that has a song called War Turtle, and that's not a fever dream that AJ had. That's a real thing that exists.
AJ, insanely powerful.
It checks just all of his boxes in one release.
The coward AJ Moser deleted Skype. He uninstalled Skype. The coward.
You hate to hear it.
But that's it.
I just want to say like a little more about this album. Like,
go ahead.
I think the main thing about its strength is like a full salvo. Like, you immediately get hit from the first second with Kawasaki's backflip. I mean, that title is very evocative in the way it kind of describes how the guitars hit you from that beginning, and then the album just does not let up. Like, literally, like, even there's songs like big build up like Prom Hell, and those still just get relentless. Like, at the end, they're just screaming, "Was I good enough?" And it's like legitimately just all out guitar frenzy, easily loopable too. Like, it's only 36 minutes, which is just like the perfect amount of time for this kind of thing.
Yeah, it gets in, gets out.
But like immediately you want to play it again. It's wonderful. Probably my favorite thing of the year.
Hell yeah. All right, that was a lot of stuff.
That was
a lot of pod.
A lot of pod. Almost 2 hours of pod.
If you're listening to this, thank you, but also seek help. They're my two pieces of advice. But also thank you. Keep listening. Don't stop.
Yes, there are many more albums to discuss. Some that I've heard a little bit early that I'm very I think maybe one or two I'm pretty excited to discuss, or at least excited to dive into more. Like I said, this most recent Friday, we only got into a little bit of it, but like it's a really fucking great release day. There's a lot of really great to good stuff that came out that we didn't touch upon.
It's been a pretty good last couple weeks. It really did feel like a lot of heavy hitters were kind of waiting off last year, and I really do believe my theory that people were like, "Let me just wait off so I can get on next year's best of."
And then coronavirus hit,
which is really funny. Yeah.
Oh God. But anyways, I hopefully you all enjoyed this big pod. With the quarantine, all this stuff that's happening, hopefully we can get some more podcasts out. I think a lot of us are probably going to be very, very soon. The way this is going to develop, we're very soon going to be self-quarantined, and hopefully we will have plenty of time to do pods and things of that nature.
I think we're going to do some more pods soon. We've got some fun stuff coming up on the horizon.
Yeah, we might start the Death Grips Discog breakdown early. We were going to wait until they got done with the Phil Elverum stuff, but the fact that like we're going to be I'm going to be home alone a lot now.
We'll probably start banking those now, and we'll start running those later in the year. But yes, for those of who are wondering if we could find a way to become more insufferable as a podcast, Matty and I are doing a Death Grips miniseries. So just prepare your mind and your fortitude for that.
It is the proper time. We have again exited the 2010s. It is time.
We've come around. I think it is the time to talk about Death Grips, not just because I am a Death Grips stan, but because I think that as they've sort of transitioned out of being this thing, this moment in music, to being kind of, well, they're not completely done, but they've, as we've talked about, gone from being like this sensation to just being like a band. It's now very interesting to like now go back through their career and talk about the ups and downs and all the interesting stuff about these guys and how they became so influential in music, because I do think they are genuinely like one of the most influential artists of the decade, and their path to getting there is like one of the most insane trajectories of any musical artist ever.
I was driving to work today, and I was thinking in my car, I was like, they got signed to Epic Records. What the fuck?
It's so
they were signed to a major label off just a mixtape that was fucking weird.
It is insane that they were on Epic Records, and also insane that Epic Records thought that was going to go any way other than the way it ended up going. Like in hindsight, like signing Death to a major label like only could have ended with a dick on an album cover. Like that was going to happen.
But again, we will get into it. Hopefully, again, probably the beginning of the summer. We'll start throwing those out. Maybe earlier. We'll see. I think I said
it's not this year, but we're getting close to the 10-year anniversary of ex-military, which is next year, which is nuts.
Yeah. So I think let's see, because I know Alex and Jake have been sick, which is why their Discog breakdown has been on a slight hiatus. I think because Jake maybe got coronavirus and Alex got sick with something, but hopefully they will be starting up episodes again very, very soon. I haven't heard an update, but again, they are dedicated to the cause. They're dedicated to the Phil cause, and of course the series is going to end on a 2-hour discussion of his appearance on the Blink 155 podcast.
Oh my god!
Discussing the classic song "I Miss You."
I mean, really, the key to that news that Phil Elverum listens to Blink 155 is we're just
he was on it. He was on it.
He was on an episode.
Yeah, he was on it, and he hadn't listened to it yet. Apparently, like he just agreed to come on.
That rules. I was just saying we're one step closer to Phil Elverum and Johnny Woke Mark Hoppus being friends.
Oh God. Okay. We gotta end this. We're going again. We're already
we really do.
Quarantine brain is really starting to hit us.
We went off the rails, and then we went off the rails, and then we went like off the rails.
We've got a serious case of pod brain.
Again, Snowpiercer. Never heard of her.
Don't know her, sweetie.
But hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Of course, if you want to keep it with us, we're not doing the show. Of course, once again, my Twitter is @MotorVanPrince. At horse_jeans. What is yours, Rose? Because you changed it again, I think.
Rat Castle Queen.
Slime Feast at Slime Feast or Dill. Lily already signed off. Earth Rise, I think there's an underscore in there somewhere.
And if you don't follow us already on our podcast account, do that. It's at Indieheads Pod. We don't plug it ever. Do that.
I was getting to it. And then wherever you listen to the podcast, again, follow us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. I don't think we're on Stitcher. I was looking into that, and then I have ADHD, so then I did not continue to look at that. So wherever you get your pods, of course, always you can download them at our Indieheads podcast .wordpress.com. That's where we put all of our MP3s, and that is it. We will join you all in the future. We have hopefully some quarantine podcast stuff planned. So hope you all enjoyed this. Hopefully you made some sense out of our messy minds, and we will see you all the next time. Bye bye.